Welcome to T-Smack, home of the T-Smack. May I take your order?
Hello there, and welcome to an all-new episode of Talking Smack, where we talk superheroes, movies, animation, comics, and much, much more. I'm your host, Josh Scar, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, my 006, Alex. Alex, how are you doing today?
I'm doing better than a slughead in a Russian satellite factory.
Slughead. Nostalgiathon carries on. This week we're talking GoldenEye. All the wonderful oh god, I'm forgetting his name. Alan Cumming. That's right. How can I forget Alan Cumming? He's Nightcrawler. He's bitching about how he's sitting in they're Gandalfing him in Avengers Doomsday. He's sitting in a room and doesn't know who the hell he's talking to, and they're going to be like dubbing over everything. This movie sounds like it's going to be such an amazing train wreck.
Oh, it sounds fantastic. The next Avengers with, oh yeah, I'm back, and I filmed for like 5 days, and I had a fight scene, and I don't know with who. I just did moves, and they just had me read lines. Didn't tell me to who. Didn't tell me why.
So it sounds like he's dying relatively quickly. That's what I'm getting at.
Oh, I'm sure. It's ridiculous.
We're gonna have to do a state of the MCU, and man, there's not a lot to talk about. We've already kind of, in our Fantastic Four episode, we talked about, like, are we excited for Doomsday? Did it do anything? We know this is kind of a train wreck, and all they're doing is just all hands on deck for this reboot that they're really trying to rush into. So I don't know. Maybe we don't need to do a state of Marvel other than, like, where do we stand on post Endgame Marvel again?
We stand in the corner.
Like at the end of Blair Witch.
Exactly. Oh man, I'm excited to talk about GoldenEye this week because it has been 30 years since it's come out. It was a fresh start, and there are so many actors in here that I'm like, how the hell they get this person, or like, where did they find this person, only for them to then show up in a bunch of hit stuff later. It was, they picked amazing. Oh my god, that's that person cast.
Yeah, there's some good stuff, and I have a question for you when we get back about the production, because I was trying to do my own research, and I don't think Wikipedia is reliable in this instance, and I can't find any other information. So I have a question for you when we get back.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, we got to hear from our friends over at I Have Some Notes, Scott, Liam, and Greg. We'll hear from them, and when we come back, we're going to talk GoldenEye as part of Nostalgiathon 2025.
I'm Liam Creswick.
I'm Scott C. Bourgeois.
I'm Greg Beaver.
And we host I Have Some Notes, the podcast with cuts, keeps, punch-ups, and tweaks on mediocre movies.
Each episode, we pitch potential script revisions and different production choices in an attempt to improve the films that didn't quite reach their potential.
From Armageddon to Zack Snyder's Justice League, we invite you to be armchair screenwriters with us as we swap notes, riff, and celebrate the middle list of movies.
Subscribe now to I Have Some Notes.
How dare they mention Armageddon?
Their most recent episode was on National Treasure, and like, that's probably one of the rare episodes where they're just like, there's not a lot I would change. There are little tweaks here and there, like a wonderful concept. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's cinema sins without the cynicism. They aren't tearing the movie down to be malicious. They're tearing it down to be like, this is how it could have been better. Listen, I have some notes, links in the episode description. Nostalgiathon, here we go. We're talking GoldenEye 1995, not the video game, although I'm sure I will reference the video game a handful of times here.
Constantly.
When I was editing the episode, Alex, last week for Batman, I opened the episode saying, Alex, what did you think of this? I don't have a lot to say. And then I rambled for like 10 minutes. So I apologize about that. This week, James Bond is very much your forte. Like, we started off Nostalgiathon with Power Rangers, which is much more my forte. I feel like Batman's a little bit of a middle ground for both of us. You have more rose-colored glasses for the Batman movies in the 90s than I do, other than Batman and Robin and maybe a little bit Batman Forever. But Bond is your territory. James Bond is not something I've ever really, like, I think as far back as I've gone is GoldenEye. I don't think I've seen anything else. I know there's the one, is it the Timothy Dalton one that has the slide whistle when he does the weird loop-de-loop in the Duke Boy's car?
Oh no, that is Roger Moore, and that was a Roger Moore one.
Okay.
That's the one where they're in the South, yeah, and they give them Duke Boys, some like car flips and stuff.
Dukes of Hazzard are popular. Let's do that.
That's what they were in the 70s and 80s, man.
From what I can tell, James Bond is basically just an encapsulation of like what is popular as we're going into production of this movie. But I will say GoldenEye really does seem like it is setting the table for Jason Bourne from what we've seen, and we'll get into that more. But the question I was teasing as we were coming into this was Wikipedia tells me that they went into principal photography of this movie in January of 1995. The movie released in November 1995. That doesn't seem right for that era. Can you please let me know if that's accurate information, or was it way off?
No, that's accurate. So from the first Bond movie that released in 1962 up until 1989, there was a Bond movie released every year or at most 3 years, because that's just how you were able to film back then. They got an actor, they locked you down. Dr. No, Russia with Love, GoldenEye, Thunderball, all 62, 63, 64, 65. Then they took a few years because Connery was like, hey, I want to do something else. So they took 2 years. Then he left. Lazenby, they had to find an actor. He was in 69. Bond came back because Lazenby kind of threw a fit about like, well, these movies are over, obviously. Connery came back for one more. He then immediately left. Roger Moore took over 73, 74. Then they started giving time to breathe a little bit, and you started having 2 or 3 year marks. They were ready to go with this movie. This movie is a Timothy Dalton movie. You can tell by the tone of it, because when Roger Moore ended his run, he was a little too old for it. He was in his mid-50s by the time it ended. He'd been Bond for 14, 15 years, somewhere in that range. They actually, when they went from Connery to Lazenby, they hired a younger actor. When they went from Connery to Roger Moore, they went an older actor. I think Roger Moore was 1 or 2 years older than Connery, but they wanted a firmly established actor. They wanted to change Bond a little bit. And then it was very obvious by the time of View to a Kill and Octopus that came out, it was just obvious Roger Moore. Roger Moore was an old man, especially he wasn't like a nowadays 50. He was a 50s back then.
He was when they smoked constantly 50.
You had the Great Depression, World War II, and the Korean War 50-year-old man. You know, you're living during the rebuild of the UK in the 50s, you know, after it had been bombed to hell. So they went with Dalton, and Dalton, because Roger Moore's were just got so outlandish, as you said, slide whistle. Then Star Wars and Star Trek were big, so they did Moonraker, which is actually kind of fun, but there was just absurdity. So they did 2 with Dalton, very serious, very grounded. A View to a Kill, The Living Daylights. They treated these like hard-boiled, rough movies where Dalton was just kind of like broken man, and he didn't really do like the Bond girl thing. Yes, they had him, but they didn't really kind of focus on it. And then towards the end of 89 to 90, there was a rights issue. There's rights issues have plagued the Bond franchise forever. The EM Productions.
No one had $1 billion back then to just solve the problem outright.
Yeah, really. So some of the rights issues were that Ian Fleming was writing the books. He sold part of the rights to like one production company. I think there was a BBC special in like the 70s. They did like one movie. And then they had different producers buy different books. That's where you were able to have Casino Royale in the 60s as a spoof comedy of the Bond movies with like Peter Sellers and stuff. That was a Bond book that they turned into a spoof because somebody had the rights for that. That's how you were able to have Never Say Never Again, which I believe was 81.
Wasn't Thunderball like an independently produced Bond film as well? Like it wasn't tied to the Connery stuff?
Yes and no. So Thunderball, there was a producer on that was able to have the rights to like the name James Bond and certain character aspects. So Never Say Never Again is actually a remake of Thunderball because they have the rights to remake Thunderball as many times as they want.
Okay.
That plot book is theirs, but they can't say 007. They can't do like the GoldenEye intro. They can't do like some of the musical sequences. I don't think they can reference MI6 because I don't think MI6 was mentioned in Thunderball. There's a bunch of stuff they just can't talk about. but they can still use the name and the plot. So that's how you're able to have that movie come out. Anyway, so when the Broccoli's bought the James Bond rights, they got like most of the books, and they started branding their own stuff. They started branding 007. They started with the gunshot at the beginning, the down the barrel shot. The music obviously is all theirs, but they had to partner with a studio. And so it was originally like United Artists, and like United Artists got bought by MGM, and there was rights issues about profit sharing, who has control of it, all this stuff. MGM went out of business. Was starting to go bankrupt right after 1989. But the Broccoli's kept working. They're like, we have Dalton, we have a script, we just have to wait for this movie studio to figure out, do they have money, and are they keeping the rights, or are they selling their portion of the rights off? So they were just ready to go. That company got bought and got merged into something else, and they were about ready to start shooting in 93 when they read their deal, and the deal said they don't get any profit sharing for the movie. And they went, excuse me? So then they started their own lawsuit. The rights got settled in, and right when they were ready to shoot, because they had everything ready, they picked Martin Campbell, they had everything ready to go. Timothy Dalton said, guys, it's been like 5 years. I have a career. I'm good. And so in a panic, they went through their cast list and said, who did we almost cast instead of Timothy Dalton? And on top of that list was Pierce Brosnan. So they basically ran to Pierce Brosnan and said, you're James Bond. How much money do you want? And he said, all the money. And they went, good, we're shooting tomorrow. So they just ran into it. They just ran as quickly as they could into production, because they're like, listen, it's been 6 years. Do people still like Bond? What's going on? They did some script revisions because they had to account for like the Cold War ending and some other stuff. That's where you get like M saying like, you're a misogynistic relic of the Cold War. You get that great line from him. From her, Judi Dench, bless her, amazing M. She did fantastic. And she just they rolled right into production because they had a deadline, because they're like, we got to make a movie now before everyone forgets what Bond is. Otherwise, if you wait a little bit while longer, you don't have a script going, you have 7-8 years, and it starts becoming, you have an entire generation of people who are like, oh yeah, Bond, that was a big thing in the 80s. And it got really weird, right? And didn't they replace Roger Moore with somebody, and they kind of suck? I mean, I think the Timothy Dalton ones are great, but there's people who don't like them because they're like, well, we went from like 15 years of goofy fun to this deadly serious guy who is hunting down, and he has a license to kill. So yeah, no, they filmed this fast.
That's pretty damn impressive then, because they must have done like all the editing and distributing like in-house and copying and whatever else needed to happen, because that's a really short timeline to get that movie edited and shipped out to theaters in not even 5 months, because they probably needed that like a week or two ahead of time. That's pretty damn impressive.
No, they basically just ran, and that's part of the reason why GoldenEye, the game for N64, didn't come out until 2 years later, almost before Tomorrow Never Dies, like a month or two before Tomorrow Never Dies comes out. By the time all the lawsuits got settled and they went, we're getting this in theaters, that's when they started signing their rights. And so that's, Rare Software, who made the game. They didn't get like the rights to make a game until like February or March, when they were already in production. And then they were given like script, and they were given storyboards to build the game off of. And like, yeah, you guys go make this game as fast as you can. But I mean, Rare took 2 years to make it. And thank God they did.
Yeah, thank God they did, because so much of that game is recreated wonderfully from the film. I think I spent half the movie being like, oh yeah, that's GoldenEye. I remember that.
Oh yeah, when it gets to the end where they're fighting on the giant satellite, all I could hear in my head is over and over Sean Bean, Alec going, from the cradle to the grave, James, because I died on that mission so many times. That was just a rough fight. You're being shot at running down this corridor, and then you have this brief fight, and it's such a rough part of the game.
They re-released it for like Xbox and Switch and stuff relatively recently, like in the last couple of years. And I remember playing it, and I got to a point where I could literally outrun Alec, to the point where you're like, you go down on top of the platform. But that platform is so precarious, just like in the movie. And if I landed wrong and I couldn't shimmy to the left a little bit, Alec would jump on top of me and I would just fall off, and the game over, try again.
I suffered through that so many times. When I would replay the missions to get like all of like the secrets for the unlockables, because that's, you know, back in the day, that's how you unlocked all these secret missions and secret characters. So you had to do certain missions in certain time frames, or you had to like do with certain health or like weapons. I hated unlocking that. I forget who you unlocked for that mission, but I mean, that's where you got like DK mode and paintball mode. Later in the movie, when James Bond showed off the mines, I could just see in my head the Sardinia mission or whatever, where you're in the control room that gets blown up by the GoldenEye. Yeah. And all I could picture in my head was, I remember there's a glitch where if you blew up a certain consoles in a certain manner, all the mines would float. So that when you're like doing multiplayer, you quickly run into that room, you blow them up, and now you can drop behind mines that are floating in the air. So people turn the corner and just run right into it.
Nice.
So you don't have to stick them to walls or anything. It's right there.
I never owned an N64, so like until they released it on Game Pass, I never had actually had an opportunity to play the missions. I'd done the multiplayer maps because my neighbor kid, who also got me into wrestling at the time, had an N64, and he just wanted to do the split screen multiplayer stuff. He didn't want to do the missions, at least not while I was around. I'm like, I want to see the game. This isn't the game. Like, this is kind of fun, but I would rather watch the missions, or watch you at least play the missions. As far as the movie goes, there are, like you said, a lot of people that you're just like, oh, damn, that person. Like Robbie Coltrane, Famke Jensen, Minnie Driver has a cameo. There's
random Minnie Driver singing.
She has this really weird thing of being cast in movies where she can't sing.
It's so weird, right?
That's the same gimmick that her character in Phantom of the Opera had.
Yeah. This is 2 years before her quote unquote breakout role of Good Will Hunting, you know, being the love interest of Skylar. It's just so weird seeing her, because I saw her, I'm like, what is that Minnie Driver? Is that actually her singing? Because that's just ludicrously terrible. Stand by your man.
Yeah, Robbie Coltrane just before 4 years before Harry Potter, 6 years.
Yep.
Harry Potter came out in 99 or 2001, something like that.
Yep, 97, I think. I think the first movie was 99, so yeah, 4 years. But yeah, or was it first book? Whatever. A few years before
I think
that.
First book was 97, then the movie rights got sold pretty quickly, and maybe that was 99 or 2001. I can't remember. It's not important because J.K. Rowling is a turf. So movie.
Oh, and Judi Dench. We have to mention her again. Oh yes,
Judi Dench is a phenomenal M.
Oh yes, wonderful.
I really just want. I don't want to just talk about it, but to get it out of the way, I forgot how campy the Q sequence was.
Thank you.
That was a completely different movie. That's like they went, let's go full pink. That has to be a carryover from like the original 89 script. They just went, we're not touching this spot. This part is gold. We're not touching it. And they changed everything else around it because like nothing else in the movie is like that.
Desmond Llewellyn, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. He has been Q since, like, I think Q was introduced in the second movie, and he was Q up until he passed away. And then they waited a movie or two. I mean, they had R briefly, which was one of the Monty Pythons. I forget what his name is, but he was playing R briefly.
Yeah, he's the more well-known one. He's nearly Headless Nick in, again, the HP movies.
And then they waited to bring Q until the second of the Craig ones. So we really actually only had 2 Qs in 25 movies, something like that.
John Cleese,
thank you. But that scene is so weird. It's so out there because the only gadgets that Bond uses in this film are his watch to control his watch, his belt, and a pen. But they mention all the wild they mention all the wild stuff the car can do, but they don't show the car doing any of that stuff.
They only had a 6-month production timeline.
Yeah. So, and in fact, the time he gets to use the car, it gets given over to the feds, to Jack Wade, you know.
Which I forgot he wasn't Felix Leiter. I haven't watched this movie in so long. He showed up and I was like, oh, hey, yeah, it's Felix. And then he's like, nope, Jack. Like, oh, shouldn't he be Felix? No, he's Jack. This
movie really only has two parts to it that I find super odd. One is the Q scene, because and that's like, what, 30 minutes into the movie? It's pretty deep into there before he swings by Q to get his marching orders to, start hunting things
It's
down.
after the first GoldenEye sequence when they blow up the satellite station in Severnaya.
Yeah, so it's deep into Act 1. And you're right, it is pure camp left over from the Roger Moore stuff. There's people sitting in the phone booths that get filled with giant pillows. There's people being launched out of various vessel ejector seats, flamethrowers, all that wild stuff in there. Q talks to the mannequin that he blows up. You get your first pretty good quip from Pierce Brosnan, and then that weird joke about the sandwich. Why would James Bond think of not even a foot long, like a 2 foot long hoagie is some kind of weapon? He's like, no, that's my sandwich, my lunch. I remember that line being a little more drawn out too, where he's like, don't touch that. Beat, beat, beat. That's my lunch. But no, even in that, it was just, don't touch that. It's my lunch. I had such a vague memory of that line going for a second, where he's gonna reveal that it's something, and then it's it's my lunch. But yeah. There wasn't really a beat in there. He just goes, it's my lunch. Come on, man. Don't touch my shit. The other oddity I noticed is that there's a scene where Bond meets with Jack Wade, the CIA agent, to then go talk to Robbie Coltrane, who is Valentin Dmitrovich, something very Russian, before we see Minnie Driver. They meet up. It's a very awkward scene where the CIA doesn't want to do the whole spy gags of if it's raining in Moscow, then there is the sun. There's an umbrella in my butt cheeks or something. Yeah. Yeah. So, but he then makes him drop his pants to show off a rose tattoo, which is the confirmation he's who he says he is. And then an extended weird sequence of the really cruddy little Beetle-esque car breaking down so that they can have a little bit of exposition. But the part about that scene, which is the weirdest, is the only voiceover for this entire damn movie is the two of them talking as the car pulls up in front of Valentin's place, where Bond breaks down what he's going to offer Valentin, to only get into the room to then tell us, the audience, to then make the deal. It's that could have been just explained as it happens. He's like, I need to go talk to Valentin. Tells that, we see it play out. What is Bond's job here? But they reiterate to the audience, Bond's going to be safe, guys. He's going to make a deal with him by bribing him. 50 minutes into the movie, he's going to be okay, just so you know. It's so obvious. ADR, there's no voiceover anywhere in this movie except for that 10 seconds of, so what are you going to offer him? I'm going to offer him what he wants most in life, money. It's what? It's so weird. I do like the banter between Bond and Valentin, where oh, it's great. They're like, oh, Giannis stole a helicopter, and he's like, I have 6, and Bond retorts with 3, and none of them work. He's like, who's counting? Whatever. I did forget how quippy his Bond was as well. Mm-hmm. And especially this early on, probably half of his lines are very much just quips and one-liners. But the first time we actually see him when he's not on a mission, he's getting evaluated for reasons, and he I think the biggest problem I have with this movie is just I understand that it's James Bond, he's a Lothario, he's very suave and savvy with women. Yeah. But these women are literally just in his presence for a moment, and they're ready to just jump him. Where his evaluator is they're doing a really nicely filmed car chase scene with Femke Jensen's character and her Ferrari, which I'm pretty sure a 1995, 94 Ferrari is probably going to be able to outrun an Aston Martin from the 1960s. Just saying. The Aston Martin is a much prettier car, Yes.
but I'm pretty sure the Ferrari is going to outrun it.
Yes. Especially on those windy roads.
Yeah. But like Bond is getting her so riled up and angry. And then he just reveals that he has a bottle of champagne in a cooler in the Aston Martin. And she's like trousers off, ready to go. And then later on in the movie, after the train sequence, which like I have a little bit of a gripe with him getting a tank in front of a train, unless that train is on like a closed circuit. I don't know how that train is ahead of them coming out of the tunnel. Cool scene. Very much Michael Bay rule of cool. Don't need logic for it, but it is a little bit of an eyebrow raiser of like, huh?
Yeah.
When you're looking for a little bit of logic, because up to this point, this movie has been fairly logical. Like a lot of the sequences make sense. They're flowing naturally. And then all of a sudden you get this cut in the tank scene where yes, he literally plows out of a building and through a bridge with this tank. One of my favorite shots of the movie is him popping up, driving the tank through all the debris and everything. Cool. But him ending up in front of that train in the tank, that's a little too far for me.
Yeah.
But then after that train gets blown up, after he and Xenia is on a top. Natalia, thank you. After he and Natalia escape, she's immediately again like, oh, our lives are saved. James Bond, you said I meant nothing to you. Let's bang. Let's do it. And then like they're just all over each other the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
That is kind of where I'm like, I know it's James Bond and he needs to have a relationship with the Bond girl, but can we like develop that instead of her just being like, hey, near-death experience, let's fuck.
Those are some vestigial things that eventually get shaken off by the Daniel Craig ones. But I also think those slightly were in response to them trying to go back to more of the roots of the Bond film. Because after Roger Moore and then with Timothy Dalton's were fairly tame. They cut out some of the more sexy stuff. I think partially because towards the end, like I forget which Roger Moore one is, but there's literally a movie where he's like 55 and the Bond girl in that one is like 23. And he went to the producers and went, I'm older than her. She like, her mother's about my age or something like that. And they're like, okay, fine. Next one, she'll be in her 30s. And the Dalton ones were fairly tame. So I think it was kind of this movie in many ways. I feel the Broccoli's, because this is the first one that Albert R. Broccoli didn't directly have hands-on with. He pushed this to Barbara Broccoli, his daughter, and Michael G. Wilson, his son. They're step-siblings. Or half-siblings? Whatever. They're his kids. They're not same mother. He basically handed the reins to them, and they stepped in. Michael G. Wilson had been producer for a long time. Barbara Broccoli was literally born into the franchise and worked her way up as a teenager all the way up to her dad's like, yeah, you can run this with your brother. And I feel like this movie was them reintroducing Bond to a new generation, saying, listen, we're not doing the Roger Moore stuff anymore. We're not doing the ultra serious Timothy Dalton stuff anymore. We have to reset the table, which is I like, because the first shots of Bond, Pierce Brosnan, you don't see him until after that amazing stunt sequence, which Tom Cruise was probably pissed seeing that stunt sequence of leaping off of, bungee jumping off of the massive dam, and then does that rappel thing where he like latches himself on to sneak in through the vents, which is a great part of the video game, to pop in and like knock out that guy in the toilet stall. You have wonderful, by the way, has Sean Bean looked more attractive than in this movie at the beginning of this?
I don't know, man. He looks fantastic.
In this movie or in general?
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. But like in this movie, I felt like this is before he's Boromir, but about 4 or 5 years before then. And I'm like,
he would have been filming in 99, 2000. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this, in the early one, it's like, he's like introduces 006. He thinks it's going to maybe like be a team up movie. They're both playing off each other really well. Then Sean Bean does what he's supposed to do in movies and dies.
He gets to die twice in this one.
Both times, well, first time fairly bloodlessly. The second one is like, I always have questions about that. Like, how far was that fall? And why is he still alive? But
because he needs to suffer.
Yeah, but this movie takes time to really breathe as it moves along. You get these nice reintroductions of this beautiful scenery. And something I noticed is that the first time he says, "My name's Bond, James Bond," the music cuts out completely. You have that
The
background
score
music. Yeah.
The score really does minimal lifting in this one. It is very ambient. Like it lets the sound do a lot of the work. Like maybe that's part of the production budget and they just didn't have time to do a full score. But I really noticed that a lot of this movie is done like I said before, like this is kind of a precursor to the Jason Bourne stuff where they just kind of let the sound designers do their thing and let that kind of carry the weight of the moment rather than letting the score tell you how to feel.
Yeah, the music was done by Eric Serra. He's a French composer. He did Nikita, La Femme Nikita, Leon the Professional, The Fifth Element, and Bulletproof, some other weird ones like Bulletproof Monk and Rollerball. But this one is just it's very tame, like you said. I thought like from playing GoldenEye so much as a kid, I thought the whole like little soft ambient music was something they added, but it's directly from the score, the little pings and pongs and little like reverberations. But you don't get until deep into this movie that, as you said, the train where they're both briefly captured by who they think is the real villain, which is the Russian commander person. And they go on the run, which is then when he ends up with the tank and that great sequence. That is like an hour 20 into the movie. And that is when we finally get the James Bond theme kicked in. The dun, 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 and of course they remix and all that stuff. But before then, it's just very ambient. Like you said, ambient music, kind of mellow. It's just kind of background. It's not overbearing until they finally like, hey guys, he said his name is Bond. He mentioned the vodka martini earlier. Now he's doing some hero shit, saving the girl. And that's when they kick in the theme. And I thought that was great. And I haven't seen this movie 20 years, maybe longer, because while GoldenEye was my first introduction to really Bond movies, and especially just playing GoldenEye a ton, once I started watching the Daniel Craig ones, which were coming out right as I was leaving my teenage years, and I'm like, oh yeah, these are awesome. And Daniel Craig ones are kind of building off of that. And then I met my wife and she's like, you got to go back and watch the Connery and Roger Moore ones, because she grew up watching those on TV and stuff. And I kind of skipped the entire Brosnan ones for a long time, because it was either I was Craig or I was watching the early stuff. I kind of ignored the Dalton stuff, even though Amazon had for a little while, they had a 007 channel from like last August through I think March of this year, and I rewatched, and they just had them all playing. I just rewatched them all, and I finally saw them all. Because they would either play them in order or they would jumble them up.
Which is James Bond, so order doesn't really matter.
Not particularly.
You just might get a little bit of tonal whiplash.
Yeah, and so I really think that this one just it's a reintroduction, a slow one. I mean, this movie's kind of languidly paced. It's 2 hours and 10 minutes long, and some scenes just breathe.
So speaking of tonal whiplash, you brought up Sean Bean, that opening facility sequence when we're still in the throes of the Cold War. One of my favorite podcasts, professional podcasts, is The Weekly Planet. James and Mason, James Clement, Nick Mason, they're a wonderful duo, Australian. Strongly recommend checking out The Weekly Planet. If you like remotely even what we do, they do it significantly better and they're funnier. Not to like downplay anything we do. I think we put out a pretty solid product. I think they just do it better, but they also have the resources we don't. So I'm going to say they have better resources than we do, and that's why. But they talked about GoldenEye a long time ago, and Mason brought up how there's like one point in this movie where the Brosnan is Irish. Yes. I think, or yeah, I'm pretty sure he's Irish. I want to say he's Welsh, but I think I'm confusing him with Christian Bale. But Brosnan, when they're in the facility, they're getting ready to see Sean Bean die the first time. Sean Bean's character says, Alec Trevelyan, he says, "Closing time, James." And as a way to say, like, give me a second, buy me a second to get this timer set on this mine, he says, "Buy me a pint." And it's like the most Irish he sounds in the entire movie. And Mason has this amazing impression that he's talking about for that sequence. I just have to play it because I want to homage. I don't want to homage. I want to just play this clip because Mason I love the way Mason interprets that line. So Nick Mason from the Weekly Planet, it's all yours.
Benny Pen.
He's obviously exaggerating, but I love it because going back and listening to it or watching that movie, like it's kind of ruined that moment for me because now I hear Mason in my head instead of Brosnan, and it's nothing like that. But at the same time, it just makes me laugh.
It's very much like if you do an Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonation, you sound nothing like him, but everyone knows you sound like it.
Yeah, everyone's got that in his back pocket except Mason's got that one. But it's also such an innocuous line that no one's going to know what he's talking about unless they listen to his podcast or I explain it to them, which makes the joke all the more funny, I think.
So it is deep into this movie when we find out that Sean Bean is actually the bad guy of this film.
Somehow he has survived is it 9 years or 6 years? It's a 6-year time jump or a 9-year time jump?
It's 9 years. So that's the funny thing about that is I was re-looking at some stuff. So this comes out in 95, apparently 9 years ago. So that's been like 86, which they did it. They put it between Bond productions, which is something they actually tend to do as kind of like little jokes in their movies. So in Skyfall, M refers to the bad guy as her favorite agent from 89 to 95 when there were no Bond films being made. So they slot him in there. And in this one, 9 years previous would have been 86. That's when they were looking for a new Bond and decided on Dalton. So that's when I love the little,
that's fun.
Yeah, they play with stuff. And then 9 years later, he has somehow convinced this commander who he defected to set up a criminal enterprise with the objective of using nuclear explosions in space to wipe out the financial market of London because London betrayed his family. I had completely missed as a kid, like what the story was. All I knew was I kind of agree with him, just like The Rock, which I think was 96 or 97. The bad guy in The Rock was a military guy who was fighting for veterans' rights of the government not paying and taking care of them. And this is like two movies from the 90s that I'm like, the bad guys have a very good point here, guys. So Alex Trevelyan is an orphan from the Lens Cossacks, who were a faction of Russians who during World War II somewhat assisted the Nazis because they were being genocided by the Russians. And then after the war were defected to the Allies because they were afraid of what the Russians would do to them, only for the Allies to send them back to the Russians to be genocided. To which then MI6 went, he's too young to know his parents' history, and an orphan. We'll make him a 00. Which, by the way, doing the math, that makes Alec 50?
That was where I was getting a little confused because, he would have to be at his youngest, if this is 1995, 55 maybe? Because he would have to have been somewhere between like 2 and 5 for him to be young enough to not remember this and get bounced around like that.
Yeah.
So he looks great for 55. Like he's clearly not smoking those 1940s to 1980s cigarettes.
No. And to which he even says at one point this is a retribution 50 years in the making. So that backstory, I looked it up. Apparently it is true. That actually happened. It was called the reparation of the Cossacks after World War II, which is basically the Cossacks were Russian/Ukrainians who fought against the Russians. And I mean, yes, they fought with the bad guys, but to them, the bad guys were the Russians, and then got sent back in atrocities. And to which, again, kind of on your side there, buddy.
Yeah, he's in a lose-lose situation. The world doesn't want to help him, so he's going to help himself. And
somehow during that, he picks up Xenia Onatop, wonderful Bond name, who is Fatma Jensen in her most sadistic, orgasmic role possibly ever.
She is very sadistic, yes. It took me a long time to realize that she's just a sadist, and like she was like strangling these guys to death, like through leg crunches.
As a kid, I wasn't sure what was happening, but as an adult, I'm like,
She had the Suzanne Summer thigh masters.
yeah. To which I laughed really hard because at one point my wife pointed out, she's like, I really hope they release some behind the scenes stuff, because if I was Fong Mei, I would have been just laughing my ass off. There, well, like, okay, was that horny enough for you in that one?
You were talking earlier about like the only voiceover is like that scene in the car with Jack and James, but like every line of dialogue that Famke Janssen is doing in this film is like ADR'd.
It has to be. There's something off with voice.
Yeah, it's too crystal clear where everyone else is a little fuzzier. And I don't know if it's because they were just like, she blew out the mics or something maybe while she was screaming. Like that's the only thing I can think of, because even with the ADR, it still sounds like she's getting pretty close to blowing out the mics.
Yeah, really.
That one general that was in charge of the helicopter, him going out with a smile, I think that was maybe one of the funniest things in the film.
Yeah, so the plan is to steal a super secret helicopter with the Russians' help, to then steal the GoldenEye, abandon the helicopter, and then use the GoldenEye to take out London while moments before they wipe out the entire stock exchange, bank accounts, everything, just steal everything.
It's a better Bane plan, because Bane forgot that those transactions can be disputed and reviewed.
Yes. So she seduces the general for his key card access, and then Bond goes and finds him, and his dead body falls out of the closet, and it just has this orgasmic smile on his face.
Hey, I think that's every guy's dream, is to go out in the act, I guess would be the best way to put it. I mean, that's not very fair to your partner unless they're a sadistic Russian spy, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I can think of worst ways to go, I guess.
So I know, unfortunately, because we both have played GoldenEye so much, so many of these set pieces like recreated one for one in the game, which is great. But seeing them, like, because we watched this Thursday, I think, so 2 days ago, we're recording on a Saturday. I was impressed by just how gorgeous some of the set pieces they chose were. Like the statue graveyard. I don't know if that's a real location or not. I can see it being a real location because like Las Vegas has what's called the neon graveyard. All the sites in Vegas were neon for a long time, and then now they've been solely replaced by LEDs, and all those giants, hotel signs and banners and all that stuff. Those all got moved to neon graveyard, which you can tour. After the fall of the USSR, I can totally see all those statues of Lenin and communism being torn down and moved to like a central location where they're just left to rot or being dismantled. And that is a beautifully lit and beautifully organized set design to just flow through and walk through, because you're seeing what is essentially Bond walking through his past, because just before then, M had torn him a new one for him being a bit of a dick, which she's introduced in a great scene. Why, as the new M, our new M, that number crunching bitch or something like that. And then she's right behind that guy, of course.
And he knows it immediately. James just like barely changes his facial expression. And the guy's just like, she walked in, didn't she?
Yeah, and to which then Judi Dench and he and Bond and her have a great scene where he even says, "Oh, your predecessor kept the scotch in that cabinet." And she says, "Well, I prefer bourbon in this cabinet." Pours himself, and she tears into him and even tears into herself a little bit. She's like, "Yes, I know you all know what I am and how you think of me, but I won't hesitate to kill you off. I won't hesitate to let you die," which is great when it comes back in like Skyfall, that she's done that before. She's left agents out in the field. And it's the same M that carried through as hers. But he's literally walking through basically the previous 34 years of movies of, if it wasn't some tech billionaire, it was a Russian who was the bad guy. And he's wandering through that. And it's also really great to see that that's when he meets Alec, who is this mythical person, Giannis, who is pulling the strings. And yes, it is exactly what Alec and his family were fighting against. They were fighting against this oppressive regimen that was destroying their family, that was that was genociding them. And now he's meeting Bond there in the relics of what was destroyed, because now he wants to do the same to the rest of the world through this global financial wipeout thing. It's not only a great metaphor, but it's just a beautiful set design. My favorite part of that is after Bond gets knocked out, is it immediately hard cuts to a woman screaming at him to wake up and kicking in the back of his seat. I love that so much. That's how Bond gets shipped together with his Bond girl. She's kicking him in the back of the seat.
And that's one of the things that I'm talking about with tonal whiplash in this movie, though, is that the first time they meet, she's screaming at him like, "Mister, wake up, get us the hell out of here." And I love that he has just enough torsion to be able to bang his head to like activate something on the dashboard. And then he's able to just barely reach to the left of him, the ejector button.
I love that he has to
all that stuff is great. And like really good miniature work in this as well. Like, yes, they obviously, like you had given a good time frame on, they were able to do a lot of pre-production stuff. So like they probably had a lot of these miniatures ready to go, or these models ready to go. So like they just carried it over and filmed it in whatever ways they needed to. But the first time she meets, she's like, "I wouldn't touch you with a 10-foot pole." And then like 5 minutes later, after the train sequence, "Oh yeah, let's bang. We're good to go. And you're my number one for the rest of my life until the next movie."
So another oddity that I wanted to point out, that before we talk about the effects a little bit. So after they bang, apparently outside of the train that they kind of almost blew up in, they get
themselves a hotel room. But they really quickly are like, they went speed where it's like, "Oh hey, let's just go out and like, yeah, we nearly died, let's do this thing."
Then they travel to the Cuba, to looking for the giant satellite that is going to control the GoldenEye. And they have a lovely anime beach episode as they're both strolling on the beach, kind of like frolicking happy together. Bond does his briefly tries to portray some more of his backstory about why he's a bit of a misogynist and why he's in so much pain because of all the women in his life and all the atrocities he's committed to get here. Martin Campbell, the director, bless him, is a great director. He restarted the franchise with GoldenEye. They brought him back 11 years later to restart it with Casino Royale. He's really good at setting the tone for these movies. He did
directed
the
Mask of Zorro. Yep.
He tried his hand at Green Lantern. Didn't work. That's fine. But there is this. I actually hit pause. So I rewound it, the movie, and hit pause. And just the moment I'm thinking of, to show my wife of like, what is the point of this moment? Because as they're hanging out on the beach and she walks up, the camera frame hangs on her hips, specifically right in the crotch of her white bikini bottom, for a half second too long. And I'm like, why? Because I'm like watching this and you see the waves and you see, Brosnan, with his nice hairy chest and his thing, and you see her like coming down the sand towards him. And just before she drops to lay beside him so they can talk and he can have his moment of, I have a darkness in my heart, just right crotch.
It's to convey the lady boner.
To which then they have sex on the beach, of course, because they start making out because she must kiss away
practical.
His pain. Yes. Kiss away his pain. There's just some weird parts of this movie that I don't know if it might be, like you said, just timing, because as you said, the miniatures work is great. There's a few moments where like, that's definitely a miniature, but the really only cruddy visual effects moments are the really hastily layered CGI shots. There's some of them that look really off. Like
I think the worst stuff in the film as far as visual effects go is like a lot of the blue screen. Like there's the one where he's climbing into the plane during the opening action sequence after he blows up the facility. That's some really bad blue screen. When he's doing the bungee jump, when they cut to Pierce Brosnan, that's some really shaky blue screen. I think the blue screen work is probably the worst stuff, but that was also still relatively new technology that they hadn't quite mastered. And I think if I'm going to give this movie any real credit where it's due, maybe it's just because the production time didn't allow it. But the lack of any attempt at real like heavy CGI was just they just went, no, we're just going to do everything in camera. We're just going to composite. We're going to blue screen and then get stock footage of something, and we'll just blue screen the visual effects on the background. They do a lot of restraint in the visual effects department, and I applaud a lot of the practical effects that they did with this film.
Oh, I completely agree. Like, the movie looks great for its age. You can see what's practical. You can see sometimes you're like, some things are a little odd, but where you're like, that was probably miniature. But there's just stuff where they drove a tank through a city. That is an amazing sequence.
It was a sound lot, and they built a brick wall, or they had a couple of brick walls that they could roll in, and they had them just go through it.
Oh yeah, they had that all planned out like ahead of time. They're like, okay, we're going to turn here. We're going to have a great joke of this general's car going through a very narrow alley. He's going to start drinking for some reason in this scene as a great running gag, and then Bond's going to come through with the tank, widen the alley, and then the military's going to come in after him, chasing him. And they did that a few times. My favorite gag in that is probably yours, where the tank crashes himself. He pops out, adjusts his tie, and then they have that giant horse Pegasus statue just hanging out on top of the tank for a good street or two.
Yeah, it's an iconic shot. I love it. It's probably like my favorite action sequence of the entire film is him driving that tank through Russia space or wherever they're supposed to be.
Yeah, no, it's a good movie. It definitely has some lingering issues. Why does he need to bang the therapist in the car at the beginning? I don't know. Why does he and Natalia? Why is they have to bang after the train? That should have been on the beach. Show them hey, now we're traveling. We're both cool. Cool down a little bit.
They went honeymoon phase really quick. Maybe it's the first man she's met outside of Boris. I don't know. But
yeah, compared to Boris, Bond is an utter gentleman.
I mean, Boris treats her nice. He challenges her to think outside the box. He just is also misogynistic in his own way.
Well, he wants to think outside of her boobs. That's what he wants her to.
Excuse you, knockers.
Knockers. Yes. Slugheads. I am invincible.
I really wish I had the video editing skills, because I would totally, I'm sure someone already has, play off the Invincible animated series on Amazon gag of where they do the intro but they don't say Invincible. They cut to the title card. So him just pop him, go, I am in, and then just Invincible. And then you cut back to him being petrified in the nitrogen or whatever, nitrous oxide or whatever.
But But by the way, if I could have any
liquid
prop,
nitrogen, that's probably what it is.
If I could have any prop from that film, I want the prop of the liquid nitrogen covered.
That is
Boris.
horrifying. I wouldn't want that anywhere near me. That thing's probably haunted. It reminded me of Blucifer. Are you familiar with Blucifer?
Yes, I know where Blucifer
from the Denver airport. Yeah.
You could have the GoldenEye. I mean, that's a cool physical prop of that's a giant fake gem that kind of glows.
It looks like a power morpher from the Power Rangers,
doesn't it? Yeah. I don't want the watch. It could be a watch. Could be any watch.
It's a Rolex, whatever.
The pen could be any pen. Fine, whatever.
I was trying to keep count of the clicks on that pen. I would really love to see if it is legitimately 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 or 1 2 1 2 1 2. I was trying to keep track, but there's so many cuts. I was like, I can't keep track of it.
Which that is another thing that I actually love about this film is that since they had so long to sit on it chair and and do some refinements of the script, it's a very solidly paced script. It's very, you have the moments breathe. You have great shots with no other current Bond movie or real movie would spend 12 minutes or however long they spent with Boris in that original station, and then it blows up, and then showing her all scared and climbing, looking to get out of the wreckage, and it just gives you so much time with her. It would just cut to it blew up. Bond sees somebody on the camera, and then he chases her down and finds her, on accident kind of thing. Or cuts to the general meetings where it's like, well, there's Natalia was also missing, not just Boris. And, that's how someone lived. They give you time to do that. So I love that sequence of why he has to rely on the pen, because he set up the mines. He did the whole 3-minute gag thing again of like, how much time we're going to give him. And then you have Alex who like, newer model, but it's the same watch. And he's like, so is it still this button? Clicks it, the mines turn off. And then what does Bond have to do here? Because he's in a tight spot. And when he notices Boris pick up the pen after Natalia beats the shit out of him, he's counting. And I started counting too. And most of the time it's 3. Every once in a while it's 2. But then again, because they add like extra clicks, maybe like because they cut away on his second click, they add a click here and there. But he's waiting for a moment to try to get them free. And I love that because it just allows you to go with him through the journey of, okay, plan A has failed. Plan B's really failed. My plan is I have to wait for a proper click count to get that pen out of his hand so it blows up. And I love little stuff like that. Like this one is just so tightly scripted.
Yeah, it's a really great sequence. And I think you're right that because they had that essentially 4 extra years to refine that script before principal photography started, it worked in their favor, which obviously they should have taken a little bit more time with the following 2 films. Maybe is it Tomorrow Never Dies is the next one with Terry Hatcher?
Yes.
That one I remember being okay, but it was very much a downward trend from what GoldenEye was. And then
yeah, it's a big downward step, but you do have Michelle Yeoh in there who's absolutely wonderful in that film. Terry Hatcher is just there to be the middle Bond girl who dies after having sex with him, but Michelle Yeoh is there to be this powerful ally.
I haven't seen that one in forever because I can never remember if Tomorrow Never Dies or is it Die Another Day?
Die Another Day is his last one, the 4th one. The 3rd one is The World Is Not Enough. That's the one with Denise Richards as Christmas Jones.
Oh yeah, and my favorite one-liner ever. I thought Christmas only came once a year.
God, that was so bad. Even as a kid,
as a kid, I didn't understand that one. As an adult, I remember. I haven't even seen that movie since I was a kid. I only remember that line. And once I understood the slang that was being used, like it just triggered in my head. I was like, oh, that's what James Bond meant. That's funny. And then I think it's bad, but it's like hilariously bad.
And then Die Another Day is Halle Berry as Jinx. That was their 40-year big like Bond film. Halle Berry looks like wears a swimsuit like the original Bond girl did.
That they eventually throw Daniel Craig into as well.
Yeah.
Or at least they homage the sequence where they're like, hey, we did it to women, now we're doing it to Bond, and look at how jacked this guy is.
John Cleese took over as Q because Desmond had passed away. Madonna was in there. Michael Madison, Rosamund Pike. That was a weird one with like the person who couldn't feel pain.
Didn't Garbage sing the intro for the last one as well? I remember that being a big deal.
No, that was Madonna.
Okay, Garbage must have been the one with Denise Richards then.
Possibly, yeah.
Or was that Quantum of Solace,
GoldenEye was
maybe?
Tina Turner.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what you thought of that one. I'm not as versed in Bond.
Garbage did The World Is Not Enough. You're right.
Okay. I'm not as I've said, I'm not as versed in Bond, and like the opening musical numbers do nothing for me. I remember listening to the GoldenEye, or not the Skyfall one, and just getting annoyed because all she's saying is Skyfall, and all of a sudden it's an Oscar winning original song, and I'm like,
yes,
fuck no, it's a stupid song. You're just giving it to her because it's Adele, and then I come back and I watch this one, and it's just Tina Turner yelling GoldenEye every 5 seconds, and I'm like, is this where Skyfall got it? That's not right. like, shouldn't there be more like nuance to this? And I want, in my research that I was doing for this, I remember watching it and trying to understand what was going on, but I was distracted by the music. But then in the research, I saw that Martin Campbell really wanted to like tell the story of the fall of the Soviet Union through the opening sequence. And I see that in retrospect, but the song does not fit the theming of the stuff happening there. And I'm just so baffled that GoldenEye is not talked about as much as a bad Bond song.
It's not a great Bond song. I mean, Skyfall did win an Oscar. I kind of like that one. I personally do like the Casino Royale's one, which is You Know My Name, which was Chris Cornell. It's a very rock anthem. No Time to Die, of course. Billie Eilish won an Oscar for that. Becoming, I think, the youngest Oscar winner. But I
think they really just don't want to give Lin-Manuel Miranda one.
Hey, whatever works. But what I think with this one is, I think this is, I think by choosing Tina Turner, they were doing an additional, again, like a throwback kind of like reset, because they had Shirley Bassey, who did Diamonds Are Forever and Goldfinger. And those are very similarly written songs, you know, he's got that gold finger, diamonds are forever, forever. And this one's just saying GoldenEye 1,000 times. I think it was, they just wanted a powerhouse, beautiful voice, and the music it wasn't great. It's fine. It's not Live and Let Die. You know, it's certainly not The Man with the Golden Gun, which that's a great Bond song too. And that's Lulu. Yeah, Lulu, as written by John Barry. It's fine. It fit, but it wasn't great. I thought the opening title credits were great. I mean, they're beautiful title credits. It's to me what the Bond movies. That's part of the Bond movies, is they kind of set the theme with what's going to happen, and it's fine.
So I had to look it up. City of Stars won for Best Original Song over How Far I'll Go from Moana. And
that's a great song.
That's up there with Zootopia beating out Moana for Best Animated Feature.
Mm-hmm.
And oh God, now I'm forgetting her name. Our lady who lost Best Supporting Actress to Jamie Lee Curtis.
Angela Bassett.
Angela Bassett, thank you. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I mean, Hollywood loves it when Hollywood strokes itself. So like La La Land got 2 nominations for Best Original Song, which Moana should have gotten 2 nominations as well.
Yes.
You should have not. How Far I'll Go and We Know the Way are 2 songs that should have been nominated for Best Original Song. Just like K-pop Demon Hunters this upcoming Oscar season. Golden, fantastic song. But Soda Pop, how it's done and what it sounds like, all 4 of those should be thrown in for consideration. You might get 2 of those nominated because the Academy really seems to only limit to 2. But I do remember there's like one year where Disney got 3, but I think it was like 2 for one movie, 1 for another movie. But that's a crime. How Far I'll Go, Moana, La La Land. Keep your thoughts about La La Land to yourself. I've kind of made mine known. But How Far I'll Go should have won. And Lin-Manuel Miranda, I think he has kind of peaked, and he's just repeating a lot of what he does because it's worked and people are aping what he's done as well. But off topic of Bond songs, Skyfall, GoldenEye, same level for me, where I don't like either of them.
You don't like GoldenEye?
I didn't like it. It didn't do anything for me. And she's just yelling GoldenEye every 5-10 seconds.
I thought you meant
the movie
itself.
I like. The movie is wonderful. Get rid of that title sequence. I don't need that opening music video.
Yeah.
Or at least get a better song. I don't know. But the song, no, thank you.
This movie, it sparked for me my love of the Bond films. It was solidified by the video game. I mean, that tells you just how big this movie was, because 2 years later, a video game came out and basically became the game of the N64. And I didn't own an N64 at first. I didn't get mine until maybe like 2000. But my friends had them, and my friend let me play through all the levels. And then we would just play 4-on-4. Even if there were like 6 of us, we'd like cycle out. Whoever loses, the new person steps in, kind of thing. And I became really, really good at it. Because I had never played the game before or multiplayer before, the way they taught me how to play it so that I actually could play the game occasionally was all 3 of them would pick on me until I became good enough.
They threw you in the deep end.
Yes. So I was constantly killed until I became good enough that I was like, it felt good. I'm like, all right, cool. I didn't automatically fail out the first round. We play for hours, man. Just get home after school.
It's a testament to what Rare created, because it's still talked about to this day. Like, I know it's nostalgia goggles, but we're 30 years down the line almost from when that came out on the N64, and it is still very highly thought of. Obviously, there's some quality of life things that won't hold up today.
No,
but even just the port that they created for the Switch and the Xbox, those hold up really well, and it's been reskinned a couple of times. I think they did like a James Bond Legends where they basically recreated GoldenEye. I know there was a Wii version that they did a remaster for, that they put Daniel Craig over the Pierce Brosnan model. But as far as I know, like the engine mostly exists as it was in 1997. They've just gotten like slightly better graphical upgrades over the years.
Yeah. It was so huge that their follow-up game called Perfect Dark had levels of that levels in that were basically just recreations of Bond levels to play in for the multiplayer. And Perfect Dark was a great, fun game to play. The remake, I actually never played the remake. That came out for the Wii, right? You said?
Yeah. When the Craig stuff was really hitting big, I think Nintendo still had Xbox had bought Rare, but Nintendo had like the rights to the GoldenEye game, so they had like licensed it out to someone to remaster for whatever anniversary it was. I think it was like the 20th anniversary, or maybe it's just the 10-year anniversary. It would have been the 10-year anniversary, because the Wii came out in like 2006 or 2007.
I think part of the reason why the movie is so well looked upon is you have a movie that revitalized the franchise, was a huge hit. They had the time to let it breathe, to remake it, to decide what they wanted to do. I mean, it's unfortunate because of a lawsuit, but I mean, they just went through another lawsuit. Well, not really a lawsuit, a power struggle with Amazon they had to deal with. They eventually got the rights to Casino Royale back. They got the rights to Thunderball back. They have all the right. That happened, and they were able to reboot the franchise with Daniel Craig. And now, well, we'll see what Amazon does with it. But
they're gonna run it into the ground, and they're gonna drill a hole to the center of the earth with it.
Yep. But I think part of the testament of why GoldenEye was just so loved is because it is a massaged version of a Dalton script that they had time to work on while they dealt with the lawsuit. They got the right actor at the right moment. Pierce Brosnan had a charm to it. But they went so quick with the next 3 movies that even though actually I was looking it up. I did not realize this. So GoldenEye made $350. 2 years later, Tomorrow Never Dies made $330 million. The World Is Not Enough made $361. Die Another Day came out in 2002. It made $432 million. So it went up, and they still looked at each other and went, we're going to go in a different direction. And they took 4 years, which was the longest period between Bond movies other than the GoldenEye one. And they went, we're starting over. And I give mad props to Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson to have the strength of will to go, you know what? People may love them, but we're not getting the prestige love that this franchise is expected, that we want from it. We want critical and critical success, commercial success, audience success. And they went to Casino Royale. And I have mad respect for them for that. They took their time. They knew what they were doing.
The fact that The World Is Not Enough brought in more money, I think speaks more to the drawing power of what Pierce Brosnan had created, and maybe a little bit of the anticipation of what Halle Berry was bringing to the table.
Yeah, I can see that.
But the response after the fact from almost everyone universally was this was not good, even though it made a lot of money. What was the budget for that one?
The budget was creeping up. So GoldenEye was only 60, which you can kind of tell because they used, as we talked about, the special effects and all that stuff. They used their budget. They had everything ready to go. They used their budget as appropriate as they could. Budget for Die Another Day was 142, so it was almost 2.5 times what GoldenEye was.
Yeah, they were starting to work into the computer generated effects and stuff. Like they had the invisible car and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, that
would not work on a $60 million budget or even like an $80 million budget with inflation.
Yeah.
So I can see where they went, this is getting too expensive. Brosnan's getting older. Let's take a breather. Let's reevaluate. And as we mentioned earlier, the Bond movies are largely a response to pop culture as well. Definitely. And the Jason Bourne movies had hit, and those were hitting big. And so when you get to GoldenEye, you can really see a lot of the Jason Bourne homages in there that are sprinkled in with the classic James Bond stuff, and they're working in origin story stuff too. So
using the parkour stuff in Casino Royale is definitely from the Jason Bourne thing.
That parkour chase scene through the construction zone is amazing.
It sets the tone.
When he barrels through that wall after the guy does like legs first flip through the air vent cut out in the wall, it's hilarious and awesome all at the same time.
That sequence, like I said, sets the tone. Yes, it starts off with a bit of a black and white of Bond's first kill kind of thing. To me, that doesn't really set the tone. The tone is set is set by its like first sequences, and just like GoldenEye, that first sequence of him running and then leaping off, and the 006 being killed, that's really set the tone for the movie and what they want to say. And so this one of the parkour, like I said, I unabashedly love that moment because that shows you what this Bond is. This isn't going to be a Bond who flips through something like because Jackie Chan was still popular at that time with those stunt sequences, especially the Bourne sequences and stuff like that. No, he just barrels through drywall after the guy. I love that. So yeah, bravo to them for knowing what they want to do.
Yeah, we definitely need to figure out a way to do a proper Bond episode at some point in the future. I know our buddy Combat Wombat has said he would gladly hop on for a Bond episode since I'm not well versed in it. I think we should definitely look into as far as doing a proper Bond episode or even like sequencing out like eras. But Alex, let everyone know about our Discord and where they can join in on the conversation. Let us know about their favorite Bond films and such.
Our Discord is tsmackpod@gmail.com. That you just click the link below. That will take you straight to our Discord. It's where we talk, have fun, post movie news, our thoughts on a movie and stuff coming out. Sometimes talk about how our day is going. Join us. You can see how much we laugh at the fact that Sony sold the rights to K-pop Demon Hunters and is now screwing the pooch because they
made a net profit of $20 million, and they created that cap themselves because they had no faith in what that movie could do. No. They gave away a $1 billion profit or a $1 billion franchise for a cap of $20 million.
Yeah, you know what, Josh, if only we knew like the director of photography that we could have on to talk about Netflix's biggest movie of all time. Oh wait,
yeah, it's nice to have Gary in our back pocket there. Hopefully they bring him back. I hope they're not going to rush the next one into production. I don't know that a sequel is necessary. That's my take, but I'm not going to say no to Maggie and all the people that worked on that film not getting another payday for these movies. So I'm all for it.
Love story. They gotta bring back the demon guy. Love story.
So as Alex said, you can find the link to our Discord in the episode description below. Please join. You can follow us on all the social media platforms: Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok at Talking Smack Pod. Email us your thoughts, questions, reviews, concerns, opinions on James Bond at tsmackpod@gmail.com. Thank Leo Allen for our musical themes, Beppel for our avatars, Retro Studios for our Ricky avatar. Please like, subscribe, rate, review on your podcatcher of choice. Alex, there's a TV show out there that people should be watching. What is it?
Watch Beast Games. No. Sorry. Star Trek. Watch Star Trek.
Who loves T-Smack?
I love T-Smack. Is it true? Mm-hmm. I do, ooh.
Benny Pen.